Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to, I thought he was coming in from Wisconsin, but he tells me he likes to follow, dare I say, the sun. He's coming in from Arizona. Mr. Andy, no, I've got to make sure I pronounce this correctly. Is it Andy Neary?
Yep, perfect.
Did I get that right? Mate, brilliant. Andy, welcome to the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah,
Is it
Darren,
okay if I just read a little bit of your mini bio?
Sure.
It's an interesting one. So you're a former professional baseball player turned insurance advisor and business strategist. Now, I'd like to ask you about this one, which when I finish reading it, as an undersized pitcher in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. And I've got to say, what does it? Because you don't look smallish.
Oh yeah. The average pitcher in Major League Baseball in the United States today is probably about 6'2", 6'3", and I'm 5'9".
Wow.
So I am not what if you met me in person, you would not view me as the prototypical look to a pitcher in Major League Baseball.
But you had a really, really fastball.
No, I back then I was a control guy, Darren. A lot of
Oh,
good
okay.
accuracy.
Yeah.
Good off-speed stuff, change-ups. I was not a guy throwing 95, 96. Back then, I played in the minors 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Speed wasn't as important as it is today. I mean, you look at Major League Baseball today, every pitcher is throwing hard.
Yeah.
Back then, it was a lot more about control.
Mm-hmm.
And so why guys like me got a shot, don't know how much of a shot I would have if I were playing today. But I also might be throwing 100 miles an hour because I'd be trained differently these days. But yeah, man, it was, when you're 5'9", 170 pounds,
Yeah.
you don't throw very hard. You had to have a lot of other things go your way to be able to play at the major league level. So I attribute it to a lot of the work I put off the field.
I love that, and we'll get into that because there's a bit more I want to read. But before I do, what you're telling me is you had a really good bag of tricks. And when I say bag of tricks, I'm not sure whether I'm not sure whether you know much about the game of cricket because USA were in the recent T20 World Cup. More and more cricketers, bowlers, they're no longer just really fast because batsmen can predict fastballs. The most effective T20 bowlers or the short form game are the ones that can have variety. So the ones that have got different deliveries that makes it difficult for the batter to understand what they're doing. So, but you might have found that you were very, very capable in Major League Baseball had you got through in this time. Anyway.
Well, that's a good analogy, though. It's the same thing I think is happening in baseball over the United States. Back, 20 years ago, if a guy was throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour, nobody could touch him.
Yeah.
Now, because everybody does, batters can hit 100 miles an hour like it looks easy because I think they're so trained to it now where they weren't 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And maybe that's a psychological thing which we could go into. Now, you've learned firsthand what it takes to compete at the highest level through discipline, resilience, and consistent daily habits, which, when we talk about what you do today, is very, very important. You bring those same performance principles to the insurance industry, where you've been working for a number of years and working with sales organizations in the insurance business, where you help producers and agencies build mindset, skills, and habits needed for sustained success. And you founded Complete Game Consulting, where you advise insurance professionals on marketing strategies that turned brand awareness into measurable business growth. And you're helping industry people within the business, helping professionals build a business they love and a life they love along the way. So, first question for you. Well, there's a couple. One is, how'd you get into the baseball leagues? Were you a child prodigy? And what was it that then, when perhaps your career in the minors or the majors sort of ended or came to a conclusion, what was it about, I guess, the insurance industry and the sales areas that you now focus on that led you down this path?
Yeah, all great questions. I was born in what I would define as a baseball family. And I say that because I didn't have any brothers, but my dad was the longtime high school baseball coach in the town that I grew up in.
Okay.
And so I played for my dad in high school. So always just you always had that mentorship, right? With having your father. I was actually a chunky kid. So my childhood was dealing with a lot of mental limitations just because I had a low self-worth. Didn't like the way I looked. People, a lot of kids would pick on you. And I think I used that as a chip on my shoulder when I would play baseball.
Okay.
And then eventually I grew out of my childhood, chubbiness. But when I got to high school, again, I wasn't a super athlete. It was just I had to bring the right skill set to the pitcher's mound to be able to succeed. I didn't throw overly hard, but I was smart.
Hmm.
I was what you would probably call a smart pitcher and an athletic pitcher. That gave me an opportunity to play at the college level at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And I would tell you, Darren, my 4 year career there was probably an up or down roller coaster. My first 2 years, again, mental limitations. I was just
Yeah.
trying to fit in. And my last 2 years is where I really got my mind straight and said, I belong. I can play Division One. And I really started to put the work in again, just like I did my junior, senior years in high school.
Hmm.
And that's where I earned the opportunity to. I didn't get drafted, but I signed a free agent contract with the Milwaukee Brewers. And it's interesting because people when they hear that I played in the Milwaukee Brewers system, they'll say things like, "Oh, that must have been great. You're so lucky to get that chance." And I was, but what's interesting, and this is really a premise for what I coach today.
Yeah.
When I got to pro baseball, all those limitations I had as a chunky kid all came back.
Wow.
I didn't feel like I belonged because I was a free agent. I wasn't one of the high draft picks. I
Hmm.
didn't throw overly hard. I didn't look the part. And I just say, just like I was a chunky kid, all I want to do is fit in. And if there's a way to get out of pro baseball quickly, fit in. Because if you're gonna keep advancing, you got to stand out.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think that's really at the end of the day my message to the people I coach today. When I look back at my pro baseball career, I feared judgment, comparison, and failure.
And
And
so
as you
through
know,
that
those are
process,
three
oh,
characteristics for sales failure too. And so that's really where my baseball career ended. And you asked about the insurance. I got into insurance like most, not by design. A family friend said, "Hey, you should give this insurance thing a try." And he owned a life insurance and financial planning company, or he was managing the company. So I
yeah.
said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And that's really where I dipped my toe and got started in the insurance industry was through a family friend that recommended I give it a try. And I would tell you probably the first 10 years of my insurance career, Darren, were very mediocre at best because I still had all those limitations.
Yeah. Okay. And the fact that you were trying to fit in, particularly at an organization where you probably need to stand out to
Mhm.
get an opportunity, what was the key lesson there that you look back on now? And how did that realization help you move forward and now develop into the successful business person you are today?
There was a pivotal moment in my insurance career, and I dare I say our life. So when I, born and raised in Wisconsin, spent my entire life there, all outside of college baseball and pro baseball.
Yeah.
But in 2014, Amy, my fiance, and I decided to move to Colorado.
Okay.
So we left our home, packed up, moved west. And I realized by moving, this was a chance to reinvent myself. And so it was there that I discovered things like personal development, professional development, investing in my own growth,
Yeah.
putting in the reps off the field, or knowing all the things I was doing when I was successful in baseball, I now apply to my business career, where the first 10 to 12 years, I didn't do that.
Hmm.
And so I would tell you that pivotal moment that turned me into a very successful sales professional was that move to Colorado because I realized if I'm going to reinvent myself, it is all on me. I have got to own my success and I've got to own my failure and I have got to invest in myself to get better.
It's interesting you talk about that because there's a lot of people, very professional, well-known people that talk about the fact that hey, success, you've got to have a team around you, but ultimately they can't do the work for you. and nobody's coming, excuse me, nobody's coming to save you, right? So you've got to do the work, and particularly from a professional sports perspective, excuse me, um, a lot of people can look at a professional baseball player and say, "Oh my God, how good are they? I would love to do what they do," without any real comprehension as to the amount of work they've had to put in outside of the mound, outside of the pitch, to actually get the opportunity to do what looks to be relatively easy. And
Hmm.
I'd say the same thing applies to business, right? Whether you're in insurance sales or any sort of sales, it's the work you do on yourself that will
Yep.
come at the moments that you're going to be tested.
Everybody wants the result. Nobody wants the work that goes into creating it. And I think we live in a society today, right, that everybody wants such a quick result. And they all see pro athletes are probably the easiest example. You see them on TV hitting the game winning shot, throwing the game winning touchdown, and everybody wants that.
Yeah,
But nobody wants the hours and years of practice when nobody was looking that went into that one throw or that one shot.
totally. And I do want to talk about some of the stuff that you did do when you realized, and then you pretty much jumped all in. But as you were talking there, I just was reminded of John Maxwell. He often talks about the fact that there was a young, aspiring speaker that came up to him after one of his keynote addresses and said, "John, you're such an inspiration. I want to do what you do." And John, being John, turned around and said, "That is fantastic. Let me ask you one question. Are you prepared to do what I've done in order to do what I now do?" Which is a
Yep.
completely different question. And a lot of people don't necessarily realize the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes in order to be good at what you do, to make it look
Mhm.
effortless or easy. So for you, Andy, the realization where perhaps all of the childhood stuff that was coming up, you wanted to fit in the professional organization, and I guess in your own words, the first 10 years of your insurance career was probably not a standout.
Mhm.
When the realization came and you moved to Colorado, what was the specific things that you started to do? But before you talk about that, what was the change? What was the thinking change behind that? That was almost like the pivotal moment or the
Yeah,
springboard.
it's a great question. Honestly, I think when we moved out there, we didn't know anybody. We weren't moving to family, moving to be around friends. We didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And for me, there was almost a freedom with that of I literally get to reinvent myself and be who I want to be.
Okay.
And they talk about this in the success world of personal development. Act as if, right?
Yes.
Before you become it, act it. And I think I started doing that. I still remember the first true investment I made in my own professional growth. I bought a course by the name of Insane Productivity from a guy by the name of Darren Hardy.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was the editor of Success Magazine at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember buying that course. It was how to create a hyper productive week. And that was my first time I ever invested financially into getting better.
Hmm.
And it was just honestly, I think I don't want to say I became addicted, but from there it was just what's next? What's next? Then I went on and I invested in a coach to help me become a better speaker because I wanted to use public speaking as part of my platform for sales. Then
Yeah.
I started investing in how to become better at social media. Then I started investing in how to do a podcast. And what it turned out to become is, lo and behold, I was in sales, but I had actually built a marketing machine
Hmm.
by investing in all these different parts of it where sales became really easy for me.
Hmm.
And I share that story because, by nature, Darren, I'm actually a big time introvert. Like, I love to speak on stage. Give me a microphone, put me in front of 1,000 people, and I'm good.
Yeah.
But when that talk's over,
Yeah.
I just want to go back to my hotel room. But my point is, I built a sales strategy that really allowed people to come to me.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, as an introvert, that was good. And
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
that's really that was about a 5 year journey from 2014 to 2019 where I really realized, holy cow, when I made this investment in myself and I continued to do that, I actually built a sales engine that I never thought I could possibly build.
Mm.
But it all started, it would not have happened had we stayed in Wisconsin. It happened because we moved and I forced myself to change what I was doing.
And I think well, there's a couple of themes that come out of that I'd like to touch on. One is you weren't waiting for somebody else to invest in you. And what's fascinating, and I'd love your thoughts on this. I guess, there's a number of people here where I live in Australia that wait for or expect their company or somebody else to provide the professional development, right? And I say the people that are going to separate themselves from the masses are the ones that take personal responsibility and they personally invest in their own development. Now, that doesn't have to be spending thousands and thousands on coaches and mentors and courses, or you could, but it means taking personal responsibility for what you're doing, right? So that's the first thing. And the second one is it's you mentioned acting as if. Now you said you built a marketing machine, right? That became effective, but none of that would have happened unless you fundamentally changed at your core what your identity was and how you saw yourself.
Hmm.
So, can you talk a little bit about that? And there's a sort of a double-loaded question there about, I guess, the importance and certainly the way you approach your clients today about the
Yeah.
importance of self-investment, but also this
Yep.
identity piece. Because a lot of people look for what's the process I need to follow, what's the sales
Yep.
methodology, and it's often not that. It's the
Yep.
person, it's how they see themselves and how they then
100%.
portray themselves.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start with the investing in yourself because you hit it. I started laughing when you were saying that because we deal with the same thing over in the States. Every time that I hear somebody say, "Let me see if my boss will pay for it," to me that disqualifies them.
Yeah.
Because if you're hoping somebody else is going to invest in your own growth, you're not committed.
Mm.
And if I were to say what separates the best from the rest when it comes to our coaching is when they come in, by the time they reach out to us to want to learn how we can help,
Yeah.
they're already 90% bought in.
Yeah.
They just need some details so they can say yes. And committing their own money is not even a question.
Mm.
It's the ones who are kicking the tires, hoping somebody else will ultimately pay for it. We know what happens. They don't end up doing anything. And at the end of the day, that becomes their entire career. They're just
Yeah.
hoping somebody finally gives them the success they're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, Now, transitioning to what really changed my success, when I built everything I was doing with speaking and social media and podcasting, and all of a sudden I realized I had all these leads coming to me, some big mindset shifts I made from a sales perspective. I had a mentor tell me one time, Andy, if you believe in what you sell and you believe it can help people, you have an obligation to tell as many people as you possibly can. Because if you don't, you are negating them from getting the help they need. And that was really
Yeah.
important for me to hear because I was one, Darren, that never wanted to sound salesy. But it's like, well, if you believe in what you sell, you have to tell people.
Yeah.
So that was a big change for me. But going back to, how I built what I built, when I look back, and I didn't know it at the time, but when I look back, and it's what we coach today, what I realized I did really well is number one, I built a personal brand
Hmm.
around what I felt I did best. That gave me the confidence. When I was putting out a message around what I felt I was the best in the market at in the
Yeah.
insurance space,
Yeah.
it gave me a lot of confidence. The second thing I did is I got crystal clear about who my ideal client is,
Mm.
which allowed me to drive better sales conversations of who was a fit and who wasn't. And then the third thing is I took both of those and I blended it into a very clear sales message that included a framework I had built, call it intellectual property, a framework I had built on how to teach people to
Hmm.
solve the problem I felt I was best positioned to solve. And when I realized I built that and started amplifying it through the speaking and the little social media and the podcasting, that's when I started getting the right people to raise their hand.
Yeah.
And it just made sales a heck of a lot easier. And I think for a lot of sales professionals, they struggle with that. Number one, what makes you different? What's your brand? How are you unique? And number two, are you crystal clear on who your ideal buyer is? And have you
Yeah.
built a sales message that makes that buyer say, tell me more? Most have not, no, most don't have that right now.
No, they don't. And most of them rely on a sales process or in many cases, the marketing arm of their company to talk about that. And let's be honest, most of that is very heavily weighted towards the product,
Yep.
not to the person. Um, So there's a number of things in there. One is the belief you had to develop in yourself. So just talk a little bit about the the belief that you've had to build. The fact that you mentioned there that sales is, and I'm just going to put words in your mouth there because I can't remember exactly what you said verbatim, but essentially letting people know what you do because you believe in it so much. So it wasn't about the product per se. It was about the belief you had that you can help people. Firmly believe that sales is the ultimate form of service. So if you're not out there solving problems, then you're not being of service. So in order to do that, you've got to talk about it. So with that, the ideal client was really important as well, as was getting your personal brand done. Just talk a little bit about the insurance industry itself, because
Yeah.
a lot of people listening to this might have, and I ask this to sales teams all the time. When you think of sales, what do you think? Right? Because a lot of people think of the pushy salesperson, right? And
Mhm.
if you're a person of service, there's nothing to push because if you're talking the language, you'll attract the people you need to talk to.
Yep.
Working in the insurance industry, how difficult had it been or was it for you to get cut through, particularly where people have this connotation or perception around insurance sales?
Yeah, that's great. It's funny. I still tell friends and peers today, it's like even your own family, when they hear you sell insurance, their immediate reaction is, "Oh, so you sell like homeowners and auto insurance? Like you're the Geico guy?" It's like, no, I sold health insurance, very different from homeowners and auto. But yeah, the biggest challenge in the insurance industry, and I'm sure it's the same in others, is commoditization. Like, how
Yeah,
are you going to look different from the other guy selling insurance, the other woman is selling insurance, right? And that's where your brand and having a clear sales message comes in. Now, selling health insurance, we actually had a couple audiences, right? We could be selling it to human resource professionals, but we also could be selling it to the executive C-suite, a CFO or a CEO. Those are two very different sales messages. So you do
yeah,
you have that ability to craft a message unique to each of those job titles?
mm,
And going back to your question about the mindset, things that really shifted my sales success in the insurance industry, Darren. I had another mentor tell me, when it comes to prospecting, your number one goal when you're putting in the activity is to get replies. It's actually not necessarily to get a yes.
mm,
So if you're making calls or you're sending emails, but you're getting replies, and even if you're getting hit with the no, one no after another, at least you're getting engagement. That's a good
mm,
start. And then the second thing is when you do get an appointment, your job is not to sell something, it's to help the buyer make a clear decision. And when I learned those two things, I'll be honest, it changed my whole viewpoint of prospecting. I no
mm,
longer was afraid of it. I was like, no, I'm going to put the work in. And if I get people, now it's a game of getting somebody to respond to me. And then when I get an opportunity to meet with somebody, I'm going to actually be very clear and I'm going to tell them my job is to help you make a clear decision.
yeah,
And all those little nuances, as subtle as they seem, really started to shift my sales success because I think I was able to build trust and credibility when I was just being honest with these people.
yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, trust is hard to come by in sales, right?
It
And I think a
is.
lot of people working with somebody in sales already is coming in with a defenses up, lack of trust. And I think the more honest and open you are with them, the quicker you build that credibility and trust. Here's an example. I tell our clients today who are selling insurance. When you walk into a prospect, a business that you're trying to sell insurance to, here's what you already know about them.
Yeah,
You know they have insurance. You know they already have a broker,
yeah,
and there's an 80% chance they like them.
yeah,
Why not say that to them when you meet them?
yeah.
Because that is going to knock the walls of defenses down because you're just stating the obvious and you're
Hmm.
being open and transparent.
Yeah.
All those little things build trust faster if you just walk in and just be an open book with your prospects.
Well, and with that, what you're also doing is not attaching any real meaning to the outcome. So you're not going
Yes.
in saying, I've got to get this meeting, I've got to get this prospect closed, I've got to at least progress this opportunity. You're saying, hey, my job is here to help you. If I can help you, I'll show you how. If I can't, then I'll let you know. Either way, it's all good because you
Yep.
might be planting a seed for a future piece of business.
And
Um,
that's a really good point, Darren. That's what the old Andy, the mediocre Andy for the first 10 years was devastated with every no.
yes.
And I think there's a lot of sales professionals out there who are tying their worth to that result, and therefore
Mm,
they're on an emotional roller coaster with sales.
Yeah, and the thing I want to say here is when you detach from the outcome, it's not saying you don't care, but
Hmm.
what you're doing is you're not adding meaning to that, and your self-worth is not being
Yep.
impacted if
Yep.
somebody says no or not yet.
Yep.
It simply means that they're either you're not your ideal prospect at that particular time, they're not in the specific area of the buying journey that they're ready to make an educated purchasing decision, or there could be something else. Either way, how do I serve them and help them anyway? Because it might be that they'll lead to a customer that is ready or who is ready to purchase.
Hmm. There's nothing more freeing to look at a prospect in the face and say, you know what, I don't think this is a good fit right now.
Yeah,
That freedom of going in knowing you don't need that win
yeah.
is inherently going to help you increase your odds to get the win.
So with that, because you mentioned, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your introversion as well. But when you've got, because no doubt you'd be speaking with clients of yours that perhaps are not at the level they want to be, or not at the level they're expected to be. So they're behind on their quota. So they start to look at every particular appointment, every particular opportunity as I've got to close this. So it comes into desperation. What do you typically work with them on to help them make that detachment, so that they're not coming across as salesy, they're not coming across as needy, they're not demonstrating they've got that thing called commission breath.
Commission breath, yes. I think it just goes back to the pipeline. You
Yeah,
know,
okay.
you talk about where should you tie your value to? Are you putting in the activity?
Mm,
Right? There's nothing that gives you a more confident feeling with your ability to sell than a full pipeline. And I truly believe if you're, I believe a producer, somebody in sales, Darren, every week has to do the following three things. You have to reach out to people who don't know you, cold outreach. You have to reach out to people who do know you and like you and can send you business. So client referrals, centers of influence. And you do have to get more people to know who you are
yeah.
using platforms like LinkedIn and other B2B platforms. I truly believe if you do all three of those every week, you will have a full pipeline. And when you
Mm,
have a full pipeline, number one, your confidence is going to be higher. But two, when you're staring at a full pipeline, you know you go into that next discovery meeting feeling a little less desperate about a win.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Now, with that, because you said you're a self-confessed introvert, give you a microphone and you're the Tony Robbins of the insurance industry. But outside of that, give me a cup of tea and let me just go and sit in
Yeah.
the corner. I noticed that you built a pretty big business without cold calls or paid ads. So thinking about that, because you did just mention there, I guess the cold outreach. So for
Mm-hmm.
people, and particularly when you went to Colorado, that you didn't know anybody, and it was probably a blessing in disguise. How did you go about that? So
Yeah.
what? Because some people think, oh, I don't know people, so I've got to pick up the phone and start, smiling and dialing and all that sort of stuff. What do you teach or encourage people in sales to do today to do one of those three things, which is the cold outreach, but doing it ethically so you can start to build that momentum and the awareness?
Yeah, I love this question because when I go back to my career and how I did it, I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but now I look back, it's like, oh, I see what I did.
Yeah,
And I love that you asked this because this is the core framework we teach. If somebody said, Andy, what do you guys do? We help insurance professionals create a sales message that gets the right prospects to say, tell me more.
yeah, okay.
And so when I look back, the first thing is I establish what my brand's going to be.
Hmm.
So what's going to make me different? And quite honestly, I used my baseball story as part of that. Oh, that's the
Okay.
former pro baseball guy. And so that was just how I'm going to differentiate myself. Then I got really crystal clear about who my ideal buyer is
Hmm.
so that when I would prospect, I was identifying my ideal buyer in my messaging. And then I built a framework around how I teach the problem that I feel I'm best positioned to solve, which was health insurance cost, how to lower health insurance costs. And then crafted that into a sales message that I thought would get the right people to say, yes, that's us. And I share that in that order because it's really important. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people in sales go right to the what should I be doing? Picking up the
yeah,
phone, sending emails. Heck, I used to go door to door. But you have to get clear on your brand, your prospect, your framework, and your message first. Because once you're clear there, the how you do it makes all the sense. Now you have a better cold call script. You have a better email script. You've got a platform on social media like LinkedIn on what kind of content you should create to attract the right buyer. When you go out and speak, if you want to speak like I did, you've got a platform from what you're going to speak on,
Mm,
webinars, podcasting, all that. All I did was take that sales message and amplify it through all those marketing channels because I realized this is about putting one message in front of a lot of people at one time. We were all taught in sales how to create linear awareness, right? One phone
mm,
call at a time, one email at a time, one door knock at a time. That's hard.
mm.
I said, I'm going to get one message in front of a lot of people so I can grow faster. And that's really where I uncovered, like, whoa, okay, now I've created a nice little lead generating engine for myself.
Yeah. And the key thing around that then is it's not just a done and sit and forget and wait for all the leads to come in. It's the things you talked about before. You've got to continue to reach out to people you don't
Yes,
know. You've still got to build the awareness. You've still got to talk to potential referral partners. So there has to be a level of consistency in that
100%.
because it's not an instant gratification response, even though society is expecting instant gratification and instant return.
Yep. One of the best lessons I've learned, Darren, in sales is just growing a business in general. Whoever can hold their breath the longest tends to win.
Yeah.
And I say that because I think so many people expect instant returns. Even somebody starting a business today, they think they're supposed to hit seven figures in the first 12 months. And then they give up.
Yeah.
People starting a podcast, right? What's the statistic that I heard? If you make it to episode 10, you're in the top 3% or something like
Something like
that.
that. Yeah.
People give up so quick
Yeah.
nowadays. If you hold your breath, you include patience in your sales strategy, you're going to win. And I know that's not easy because there are people working for companies that have those short-term goals. But at the end of the day, you've got to go at sales with a level of patience because you know it. If you bring desperation and win at all cost mentality to sales, it's very unlikely you're going to succeed.
Yes, 100%, 100%. What I'd love to talk to you about as well is obviously the work you do with organizations, and you've mentioned some large organizations that you're not naming them, but I guess the structure of them. Talk about leadership because you just mentioned there that there'll be salespeople out there listening to this who perhaps are under pressure to get the instant return, right? Their pipeline is not where it needs to be, and perhaps they don't think they have the runway because they've got a sales manager or a sales director that's riding them like a bucking bull to say, get this thing done, which naturally creates the behavior of desperation. From a leadership message, when you're working with organizations to help put in this framework and this methodology and this ecosystem, what's the message to leaders who are running sales teams that yes, they have to have a sense of urgency, but also temper that with a level of patience as well,
Mm.
that there is an incubation period and we're in this for the long game.
Yeah, we're going through it right now in the insurance industry for sure. I would argue that most of the sales training in the insurance industry is pretty outdated.
Hmm.
So the first thing I would tell a sales leader is one, when it comes to measuring the productivity of your producers, you have to use leading indicators, not lagging. I think a lot of them just look at revenue. How much revenue have you generated
Yeah.
without looking at the activity they're actually putting in? So that would be the first thing. Don't just measure somebody's results, measure their activity going into the results. The second thing I would tell them is when it comes to training, the biggest shift we've seen in insurance, and I'm confident it applies to other industries. 15, 20 years ago, Darren, you would take a list of cold suspects, right? And in our industry, it was all right, go hammer those people with cold calls and cold emails and get somebody to submit to an appointment. And then if you get an appointment, throw a bunch of quotes at them, insurance quotes. And if you're competitive, you might win.
Yeah.
That's not how it works anymore. People need more trust and more credibility. So the number one step I'd encourage every sales leader to invest more time and money in is what are you doing to help your reps build awareness with their prospects? We still have cold suspects who don't know us. But before you can turn them into an appointment, a lead,
Mm.
you have to build awareness with them. They have to know you exist. They
Yeah.
have to resonate with you. So what are you doing to help your producers build that awareness with those suspects so they can become prospects?
Mm. And that can be done multiple different ways, right?
Hmm.
As you said, you build a marketing engine retrospectively that you didn't know you were doing at the time, but part of that is to build awareness. So, who is Andy? What does Andy stand for? What problem does Andy solve? And who's the ideal customer he talks to? That's all about educating the marketplace on who we are, but what problems we solve.
Hmm.
And what that will do is it will sift through the people who perhaps are not interested to the ones that might be, hey, I've got this problem. They're speaking my language. I want to put my hand up to learn something more. And that's the next key thing in the process. It's not about how do I close them because we know that statistically that certainly in B2B sales, and I would suggest that insurance in a lot of cases is B2B unless you're selling to
Yep.
homeowners, um, takes 5 to 12 contact points over a period of time in order to get a buying decision done, which means there has to be trust, there has to be awareness, there has to be comfort developed. And you can't do that by just blanketing the marketplace with product information.
Well, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier when I said identify your brand and identify your ideal client. That marketing, that sales message you're putting out there has to be directed at a very specific buyer.
Mm,
When I look at the top producers in the insurance industry and what are they doing from a sales messaging perspective, number one, they have an opinion. They're
yep,
not trying to be everything to everybody. They have an opinion that's a fit for some and not a fit for another.
yep,
And they have built a framework around how they teach these people to succeed, how they teach
mm,
these people to overcome the problem that they feel they're the expert at solving.
yep,
And they stay in that lane, which attracts the right people. It gets others to say he's not or she's not for me, and that's okay
yep.
because it brings the right buyers to the table.
And the thing with that, I keep in my head, I'm thinking they're ruthless and they're relentless. And when
Mm-hmm.
I say that, this is not a negative turn. They're relentless and ruthless in making sure that they are focused on serving the customer who is their ideal customer because that's the problem. They're the problems I want to solve for those people. And the more I do that, it's like people always talk about the fact that the riches are in the niches, right? So you don't want to be a generalist, but be an expert. So you are the go-to person. You are known for solving that particular problem. Is the pool smaller? Probably, but the
Mm-hmm.
quality of that pool will be significantly more. And here's the other thing, those people are probably going to be prepared to pay a premium because they get access to you because you are the expert.
100%. And I think we have shifted away from quantity to quality. So you might have a smaller target list, but hey, if it's quality, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And you said the riches are in the niches. I'll add one word. I believe the riches are in the psychographic niches. So
So talk about that.
just because you sell insurance to the construction industry, right? That's a common niche in our industry. Doesn't mean they're a good fit.
Yeah.
Who's the buyer between the ears?
Yeah.
That's where you really got to get clear about who your ideal buyer is, the psychographic. What do they believe? What do they stand for? What do they believe about what you sell? That's where your best clients live. So if you get really clear about who the right fit is here, that's where you're going to find your best clients.
And that all comes back to what you said before in terms of creating your own brand, being really clear on who the ideal buyer is, how that ideal buyer is thinking, what's the framework to get access to them, and therefore how do I craft a message that talks the language that resonates with that person specifically to the point where they're going to put their hand up and say, tell me more.
100%. When you get
And
in a buyer's head with your messaging, that's when you got them. When you get a buyer that says you're saying exactly what I'm thinking, that's how you know you have a good one.
and what will happen there? Naturally, there will be, if there's a fit, and predominantly there will be based on all the messaging you've got, the transaction will just take care of itself.
When you're
And
an introvert, you love that.
isn't it great when the phone just rings and the emails just come in and the leads just flow in and thank you very
Well,
much.
and it's not only that, Darren. Yeah, inbound leads come in more often, which is great, but it also makes your cold outreach better, the calls and the emails, because people know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've built a lot of value through something as simple as an email campaign,
Mm,
when you pick up a phone and call somebody that's getting that campaign from you, they're probably more likely to say, "Yeah, I'll chat with you." Or, "Hey,
yeah.
hey, Andy, good to hear from you."
Yeah.
Why? Because you've already been delivering value to them for months.
Well, that's the interesting thing. And talking about your podcast, for example, which you started back in 2019, um, what I've found is, and I love your take on this, is when people speak to you, but if they've been listening to your podcasts, they feel as if they already know you, even though you
Oh,
may not have met them before. So there's this level of credibility because they've heard your voice, they heard your messaging, they get a sense of who you are. So when you do make contact with them or do come into their environment, it's almost like there's no real small talk that has to happen because we've already established that baseline of know, like, and trust, or maybe not trust yet, but certainly the know part.
If there is one result I love creating for people more than any other result is when they walk into a meeting with a prospect who already knows them and likes them and they've never shaken their hand before.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what you're talking about. And that's possible today at a level we've never experienced before.
it is.
Everybody listening follows somebody on social media they've never met,
Yeah,
but they trust them because they see them all the time. They feel like they know them and they're learning from them.
yeah,
If you can accomplish all three, if you can get people to see you, learn from you, and feel like they know you, you will have people who trust you that have never met you. And that's the power of creating content, building a brand, because
yeah,
you can build credibility and trust before you ever walk through their door.
100%. Which leads to a test, though. When you do walk through the door, you better make sure that you continue to deliver that level of
Oh,
consistency
yeah.
that you've been portraying on the marketplace.
Now execution must back up the words.
Because there are so many examples where there's this perception that's been created on social
Yep.
media, and you
100%.
get to meet them and think, hang on, this person is the complete opposite to what they're portraying.
Yep.
That's something, there's a big question mark now.
Yep. Yeah, that would be the best, most important advice I might give today is create them any sales message you want to create intrigue. You just better make sure that it's authentic, it's true, and the actions back up the words. 100%.
Love it. So, mate, hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. For people listening to this, if there was, I know we've talked about a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and at the risk of repeating ourselves, but if there was one thing you could suggest to a person, and talking to that person who perhaps is maybe earlier in their career or not quite getting the penetration they thought they were going to get, maybe they're under a little bit of pressure to their pipeline's not where it needs to be. What's one practical thing that they could do or start to do today that can help them not so much improve the results, but certainly make progress
Yep.
to becoming that person that's going to become more attractive to the market?
Hang up the phone, close the inbox, sit down and get clear on your brand. So answer these three questions. What makes you unique? So tell me a little bit about your story. How are you different from others who are selling what you sell? Number two, what do you feel you do as well as anybody in your market? What's your zone of genius when it comes to what you sell?
Yeah.
And three, what do you want to be known for in the market? Good way to build a brand is just to answer those three questions. What makes you unique? What do you do as well as anybody else? And what do you want to be known for? Then the second thing I do, Darren, is identify your ideal buyer. Who do you want to
Mhm.
do business with? Number one, what do they look like demographically? So size, location, industry, job title of who you're targeting. And then more importantly, identify them psychographically.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to do? Think of your favorite clients right now, your best clients. Who are they between the ears? Why do they let you do your best work?
Mm.
Because that's who you're trying to do business with. And then from there, there's two more things you got to do. Number one, identify a problem you want to own in your market. So think about what you sell.
Yeah.
What is a problem that fires you up? Go own that problem for the market, which is followed by the last thing, which is what's your framework
Hmm.
that you're going to use to teach people to solve that problem? So when you know who your ideal buyer is demographically and psychographically, you have a problem you want to own for that buyer, and you have a framework you use to teach them how to solve it. Now it's just a game of putting a megaphone on that message built around your brand across all the channels we've been talking about today
Yeah.
and build as much awareness as you can. And now the activity is really going to start picking up for you.
And people will start to naturally pull their hand up and say, tell me more.
And the best part about it, Darren, is because we got AI these days, sit down with AI and get all those questions answered.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has heard the book, read the book, Building a Story Brand, but I'm a Story Brand certified guide. So a lot of what I just mentioned comes right from the book Story Brand. Heck, sit down with chat and say, act as a certified Story Brand guide and help me answer these questions. And before you know it, in 10 minutes, you'll have all this built out. But I would
100%.
do that, Darren, before I start picking up the phone more and emailing more and whatever. Get really clear on your brand and your client.
I love that, Andy, because too often it's too easy to go straight into the doing without
Yep.
actually getting really clear on the being. and that's the
Yep.
identity part, who you are and what you stand for, which goes back to what you shared earlier in the podcast in terms of when you were a child and all the stuff that you were carrying. When you got into the environment where you could have been successful, all this stuff came up, so you
Mhm.
had to then re-identify yourself.
100%. Yep.
Love it.
And get the garbage out of get the trash between the ears out of your ears, because at the end of the day, you and I both know, Darren, success in sales is 80% mindset.
Oh, it is, and it's actually funny you should say that. I've had a guy called Noah St. John on the podcast a few times, and he talks a lot about head trash, right?
Mhm.
And the fact that head trash we've got in here stops a lot of us from even reaching a percentage of our potential, not let alone the full potential. So, mate, that's fantastic advice and guidance. So greatly appreciate it. For people who wanting to connect with you, learn more about you and what you do, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to catch our content, the best two places to go are LinkedIn and YouTube.
Hmm.
Andy Neary, Complete Game Consulting on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And our YouTube channel is the Accelerate Your Insurance Sales podcast. So it's our podcast channel. We definitely got a ton of videos there too, but those would be two very easy places to go to connect.
Brilliant, mate. I'll make sure they are in the show notes. And thanks again. And well, publicly, thanks again for your flexibility because we were going to do
Yeah,
this
you
earlier in the
bet.
week, but greatly appreciate it. And thank you for being such a great guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast, my friend.
Enjoyed it. Great conversation. Thanks, Darren.
All the best, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.